Hello, and welcome to Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Today, we're going to do a fast and loose tonalist watercolor landscape painting based on a photograph that I took earlier today. I'll upload the photograph up to the Patreon so you can download it if you'd like to follow along. I'll also have an image of the picture here and the final results here for you to look at, so you can see the progress, and like I said, if you'd like to follow along. So in front of me, I have a quarter sheet of Stonehenge Aqua, 140-pound cold press. I am thoroughly saturating it. It's 100% cotton, and I really enjoy painting wet and wet, so that's my first stage. The next stage is to gently remove Hammy from my chair. There you go. And then we'll get started. So I usually use raw sienna to map out a painting. So I'll grab some of that, but I feel like first we should work with our blues, just because there's so much sky in this picture. If I mix raw sienna with that, I get a kind of graying effect, and I'm really not looking for much of that right now. Just going to gradiate down. I'll probably change to a different blue. Right now it's just ultramarine. I haven't watercolored in a few days. I've been playing with different mediums. I mentioned in other videos that I've been on break from work, so I've been just kind of relaxing and kind of just sketching. But I really want to watercolor. I took the longboard out today, so I do a lot of longboarding for exercise. And I had to stop and take a picture of this scene. I wish maybe I had zoomed in a little bit more. I'm changing the horizon line in this photo as opposed to the picture. There was kind of like some tall grass and a ditch right there. So I don't know if it shows through in the picture, maybe a little bit, but definitely would have been snakes or red ants in there, and I definitely didn't have long pants or boots on, so I did not want to chance that. One time I was on a levee and I had to get down to my boxers because I had sat in a red ant pile. So it's not fun. Just playing with these motions across. Prior to the break starting, I was doing a lot of studies of master paintings. Painters from the 1800s. Then I looked at T.C. Eliot. He went into the 1900s, American Impressionist, oils. But with the watercolor studies, you could definitely see the brush strokes taking place, the gradient taking place, and they were definitely masters of utilizing those two tools. With sky studies, like focusing on the sky in the master paintings, I noticed that there was a left to right gradation as well as the vertical gradation, and that's something talked about in Carlson's Guide to Landscape Painting. So that's something you want to keep in mind, kind of switch things up. In fact, I might even force a change to take place. Maybe I'll bring a little bit more ultramarine up on this side. The reason being is due to the position of the sun in the sky. It's not going to be directly overhead, so to the north and south you're going to have some changes. starting to put in this fella right here. Oh, and another thing that I noticed with skies, and do I want to keep it ultramarine blue? Do I want to play around with anything else? Let's leave the sky for a moment. We'll map this out and then we'll get back to the sky. And I'll talk some more about skies in a moment. So water, from Bob Ross to the Masters, you'll see horizontal brush strokes taking place, Bob Ross being a master as well. And that being said, yeah, you'll just see that from everybody, just that horizontal plane. If Bob Ross was to do a reflection, and I have reflections of trees right here, so I'll grab some raw sienna to map that in. He first goes down with it in his oils and then makes a horizontal swipe over it. I'm kind of tight in this area right here. In fact, with that landmass, I'm going to bring it up quite a bit. But that approach to putting in the water and the reflections is always a winner. Now, the landmass in the background comes up a little bit higher back here, so it kind of gets an S-shaped composition. We have a little outcropping here, so I'm going to force that. We get a little bit closer with our landmass here. Then we have our sweeping grass in front. I like to paint to the edge of the paper. It's 11 by 15, and if I was to mat this, it would cover over a little bit, but it just really helps me get rid of the whites that would kind of throw me off. All right, so the clouds in the sky. Let's mix some raw sienna and ultramarine. I'm going to use the paper towel. I'm going to use this mix to try to create wispy clouds. As you get higher in the sky, the clouds get closer to you generally, so you're going to put larger clouds in. Then from there, as you get lowered on the horizon, and you can see in the picture that they're quite small and they get very thin and almost kind of compact and close together as they go back. So using that perspective technique in the sky will really help create the 3D aspect. I don't remember where I heard this from. It might have been Stuart Davies. It said, don't really center the clouds in the center of the painting. Let them kind of trail off the sides and trail into it, just so it's not the center of the scene. And when I was watching a lot of Mr. Davies, he is an awesome painter and films some awesome stuff. I think he's been doing a lot of Zoom meetings videos. I unfortunately have not been able to attend one of those, and I really should now that I have the free time. I'm not sure if it costs anything, but I think whatever he would charge would be worth it, because he is an absolute master and a delight to watch. So I should look into that. Okay. So with this background here, I'm thinking about Thomas Girton's The White House at Chelsea. So I'll build up, excuse me, those darks and those greens. in a bit. I'll force this right here, our S shape. I can start putting in a little wet and wet for my trees. I'm thinking I might go to either Prussian blue or phthalo blue to mix some greens. You could do ultramarine with the lemon yellow, or lemon yellow with Paynes gray, or Paynes gray with the raw sienna. So you have different options to go to with the green. The thing is, okay, I want to pull out kind of that distant white, so before everything dries off, just pull a little bit of white horizontal lines. There we go. Anyway, the thing is, don't get caught up in the colors and the palette and things like that. One of the best things for beginners is to use a limited palette and more focus on tones and form as opposed to trying to get the perfect color. In fact, I've been working with Conte crayon, which generally comes in a little set of 4, black, white, brown, and sanguine, your earth red. And I've been sketching with those, and it's just amazing all the stuff that you can create just from those few pieces. And then you toss in some toned paper and then you get even more. And right now we're just raw sienna and ultramarine. I wonder if we should just stay in that and try to make this a minimal palette painting. By the way, you're welcome to follow along with this. I think I mentioned that I am putting this photo up on the Patreon for you all to download and follow along with. I'm not sure if this will be a Patreon exclusive or not. I have been kind of creating more content for the Patreon. I do have about, how many? Like 640 videos, I think, on YouTube at this point. So there's tons of free ones out there, and just want to kind of have a whole bunch of stuff out there for people to follow along with. But the Patreon and the donations there help with art supplies and experimenting with different things. In fact, I picked up, well, 4 books just shipped today off of eBay. Some used art books. I'm excited to get those. And I also picked up one that arrived today, and I actually did a little kind of first impression video on it. I was pretty excited about that. That was fun. I'm thinking that this one I will use the Paynes gray. We'll use that as our dark, and we'll see what type of greens we can get between that and the raw sienna. That will try to keep us in a limited palette. So this is a 3rd color being introduced. And Paynes gray is really just, at this point, it's a black and a blue mixed together by most companies. Historically, it was 3 colors mixed together to get that effect. I have this scraping tool made by Mr. Mark, a YouTuber who sent it to me. Anyway, so yeah, Paynes gray historically is going to be 3 colors mixed together, but now when you purchase it from any brand, it's usually black mixed with a blue. In fact, I think that it's usually ultramarine. So we're just introducing the black aspect there. There are a variety of grays that we've explored on this channel. I want to get some of those like tree holes, little openings for you to see through to the sky. Might have to come after a dry off. I'm going to darken that horizon, the dark trees. We'll see what type of greens we can get before we do that. Okay, raw sienna and the Paynes gray. Now, I am somebody that paints more muted and earth colors. Muddy might be the terminology you use. That's just my preference. I like that kind of tonalist color palette. But feel free to explore and play around and use this scene with different colors. Maybe add lemon yellow. In fact, maybe we might do that. Actually, a fun color that I've been playing with is the new Gamboge. It's kind of the yellow that was used, I believe, historically, that and Indian yellow. I'm just going to use Gamboge as the pronunciation. Let's just say that. Anyway, historically, it was, I think, from a sap, and it was toxic. And I think this is it right here. I had gotten it with Chinese art supplies. So I had ordered that specifically. But I try to avoid using toxic things. So the new Gamboge is just a synthetic mix of it. So y'all wouldn't have that on the palette. But I just pulled it out, the Gamboge xeiyu, so we'll try it out. We'll see if you'll like it. It might be something you want to add. Matthew Clemens and Joe Mezzo, when I talked to them about it, because Matthew was using it. Mustard yellow was a great descriptive term for it. It just glows. There's just something about it. In fact, there's some paintings that I want to take that I've done recently and experiment with just glazing this over them. Now, so far we've just used the hake, the towel, and the scraper. I'll have to do a video on some of the historical watercolor books that I have, so you can see what's available on eBay. Maybe it's something you want to add to your collection. Sometimes being able to see them in person is better than looking at them on the Kindle or on the computer. And if you type in, let's say you were looking at Hudson River Valley painting. I'm going to grab some paint on this and use it as a palette knife and just play while I talk. So if you were to look at Hudson River Valley painting, you're going to get Thomas Cole popping up. It's going to be like the first thing that pops up. And then you'll get some others, and you'll probably get repetition at that point. You'll start seeing a lot of the same images. I think that's simply just because a lot of people haven't uploaded a whole bunch. Or maybe the search engine just isn't really that optimized to find those things. For example, I was sketching the Gibson Girls, and if you Google that, the same image will show up over and over again. And I just had a book come in off of eBay, and it has just, I think it's like 180 pages or 100 and something. And I didn't come across any of those online. So just the wealth of knowledge within the books are great. This one was an old library book, and it was like 5 minutes from where I grew up. When I opened it up and just glanced and I saw the name, it said Connecticut Library, and I was like, oh my god, I grew up close to that. So that was really exciting too. I wish I had known that when I filmed the video, because I would just I probably would have ranted about that the whole time. I've been excited. So let me pause this, we'll do a dry off, and then we'll start layering. All right, now that we've done our dry off, it's softened a little bit. I'm gonna grab the number 4 rigger. I'm gonna use that to put in my background. I'm gonna kind of work my way back to forward with this. A mixture of just the Paynes gray and the Ultramarine, which, like I said, I believe it already has Ultramarine in it, but I'm just kind of using it just as a simple go-to. Usually my personal kind of recipe for this background would be the light red oxide and the Ultramarine. Reason being that mixes to kind of a purple, and it kind of gives you that distant atmospheric effect. Okay, there we go. For a little bit of variety, I could just probably throw in some Paynes gray in spots. Let me the Gamboge with the Paynes gray mix gives me a dark green. Let's put that in for our distant green. So the idea with atmospheric perspective is that as you recede into the picture plane, meaning as you go back into the picture, you're going to lose your yellows, then your reds, and the last you're going to have is your blue. So if you look at something very far away, it'll probably have a bluish look to it. So try that next time you're out and about and you have a long distance area to look. Maybe you're out driving, but make sure you're careful if you're doing that. But that is what you can expect. And the reason that happens, let's grab some raw Sienna on this, is that you have between you and that object layers and layers of air. Think about it like as veils, and those small layers, those small particles, just slowly filter stuff out within that distance, so you're catching that atmospheric effect. Let's see if I can get this a little bit greener. I was obsessing over the trees in Thomas Gerton's paintings. Just can't quite figure out how to make the simple marks that they had done. But I'm just kind of dabbing this into place. I'll let the top of the tree catch more light and then throw Paynes gray in for the underside. So looking at the photo, you'll just see that phenomenon taking place real time in the photo, where the top of the tree, I'm sure that there's a scientific term for it, or an arborist term. I'll have to ask Matthew Clemens. But the top will have Got that light that it catches, and then less light makes its way through, so you have that darker underhang. Side brush. And to ground them in place, the brush along the ground. Gamboge, Gamboge for the landmass in front. I'll grab the hake to simplify the application here. A little bit Paynes gray. We put so much color up there, let's bring a little bit of reflection down. Just a little bit of horizontal lines. I'd even grab some Ultramarine blue. I was thinking about this, just taking some and placing it amongst the trees. I was experimenting with taking the sky color, mixing it with white gouache, and applying it over trees. Bring that guy down. It's like the dead center of the painting. So we'll bring it out a little bit more. See if we could offset it a little bit. And one of the things that I know that I'm guilty of, you should know what you have as your flaws. You're going to be your biggest critique, and chances are people aren't going to notice it. But I slowly make the scene larger and larger, meaning I'll make the trees grow larger and larger. And as you can see, I made them bigger to fit everything else. All right, I said I'd grab the hake, and I have grabbed said hake. I have not put any more water on it or anything like that. I'm just using this here. Now, even though grass was long here, it was very well manicured, so I hope the person that owns this spot doesn't see my willy-nilly impression of it. This is some Ultramarine thrown in, grabbing a little bit of water. Yep. So this is just a crawfish pond, I think. I think there was some, actually some white birds out on it whenever I had passed back. I went down to the end of the road. It was about 4 miles. And then I had to come back, which was great, getting in 8 miles of longboarding. Who can argue with the health benefits of that? A lot better than running, me personally. Okay, now let's see. I'm gonna wipe off the center of my palette. You won't see that because I'll have the pictures over it. But I'm just grabbing the number, like a squirrel mop. And what I want to do is grab a little bit of ultramarine. And now just experiment with a horizontal application. The reason I grabbed the squirrel mop was just the size of it, being able to kind of get in there a little bit better than the hake, and how much it should be holding, but it's not holding much at the moment. And there we go. the picture, it is darker tonally back here. That might be way too much, but let's just let that go over there. Let me know what you think. Do you like the darker in the distance of the ultramarine, or the stronger value, or do you like it closer in the picture plane, like darker if I put it here? Not that I didn't do it so you wouldn't be able to see it. Let me pause this. Let's do a dry off. All right, so now a few things I want to play with. I think I will introduce white gouache to this. I use a separate container for it because of the fact that it has a tendency to contaminate everything that it touches on a regular palette, and it'll even contaminate your wash water. And when I say contaminate, it's going to get the that chalky effect. This should be pointed enough to maybe throw a little bird in. Or I'll just grab a different brush. Nope, that's way too much. No need to make things difficult for yourself. Number 1. There we go. We got some birds flying around, sitting around in the water. I wanted to play with a little bit of a gestural dry brush effect on top. And I think I had talked about mixing the sky color, so I'm going to grab some ultramarine blue. Play around with that right on top. Now, you may not like white gouache or white watercolor paint. You might feel indifferent to it. It's fine, whatever your opinion is on it. I kind of always mention the history that I had read, which I had seen on handprint.com, where in the 1800s, watercolor was coming into a medium of its own, a art form of its own, and it was starting to resemble oil paintings. And people started writing books on why the two should be different, why the two should be the same, etc., etc. So kind of a lot of the rules about white pigment and watercolor come from that time period. So make your own decisions, play around with it, see if you like it. You might enjoy it. In fact, let's see if we can dot little clouds like in the picture. Just kind of run them along. And some other colors on this brush, but that's fine. That'll just add a little bit of interest. We even have some white back here, which will just trail along. Little houses, I think. And what I want to try is something that happened kind of inadvertently in an experiment. So I'm going to wet an area. Got a little bit of white gouache on it, so that's what I mean by it contaminating everything. Let's just make some marks. Kind of do a little wet and wet gouache. It gave a really interesting effect as an accident in another painting, so I'm going to try that here. So let me know what you think. And at this point, let's do a dry off and see if we are done. All right, and there you have it. I think I'm going to do a little bit off camera, just playing around in here, and I'll post that picture at the end. It'll just be some minor detail, but we're at 36 minutes, so I'm going to stop the video. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, follow. And if you want to support this channel, I have the Patreon. I have items up for sale on the Etsy shop. I also have the YouTube membership that you subscribe to. So if you want to check those out, I'd appreciate that. You'll have a great day and take care.